To those who have joined, welcome. This is the panel on business mastery for coaches, growth hacks for starting and growing a coaching business. My name is Pranav Ramanathan, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Kocharya. We have as our expert panelist today, Brett Burhoff. Brett is a business strategist, innovator, and has extensive expertise in transforming businesses, market analysis, and using cutting-edge technologies to help coaches achieve the results. He's been featured in Forbes, Harvard Business Review, the Huffington Post. He is a LinkedIn influencer, which makes him uniquely qualified for this webinar in and of itself. And his insights have been shared with millions worldwide. Brett is also a good friend and college mate of mine. We also apparently have the same grooming habits, same hairdresser, or lack thereof. Brett, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Pranav.
And Brett is joining us here from San Francisco, California. So, Brett, before we get started, let's prime where we are on this panel. We are talking to coaches. We are talking to coaches who have been certified, have started businesses. We are talking to coaches at any stage, basically. We're also talking to entrepreneurs that are looking to build their business, to build their sales and marketing prowess. And we are also probably looking at professionals that are trying to become thought leaders, just as you have in specifically in the coaching industry. So why don't we start there and just talk about what you see as the industry from your perspective?
Yeah, I think well, really when we look at coaching outside of certification, we hit that point of certification. And then once we have that point of certification, and we could really have this coaching side down, we then have to sort of transfer over to another hat, right? So we're wearing multiple hats in this journey, and we have to transfer over to that business growth side. And as you talked about, we're going to talk about growth hacking in here. But before we start hacking growth, we have to understand what we're actually hacking, right? So we have to understand that we're moving from, now we're a credentialed coach. We understand what it's like to be a coach. Now, what do we do with it? How do we build this business? What's our foundation? And so our foundation really begins in the coaching world, online, of course, whether it be on our own homepage or on LinkedIn. And to begin to build that foundation, choosing the largest platforms and the most appropriate platforms are most important. In most everybody's case, this is going to be LinkedIn. This is going to be to build your foundation on LinkedIn. And then second to that will be your website as well. Now, we go into details on this. We have an upcoming business mastery module that's being released as we speak. So you're gonna get a really nice look into that series and also these growth hacks today. But I think in Pranav, in answer to that question, really, we want to start thinking about these two sides, right? So being the coach and the expert, and then what do we do once we are that expert, and what's the next step?
Okay. So on that note, we're hoping to have some specific outcomes come out of this conversation between the two of us, and they are to do with marketing and selling a coaching business, a thriving coaching business. I started this coaching business, Kocharya, over 10 years ago, at which point there were very different channels in place for marketing. I'm not even entirely sure back then if we had, maybe Twitter was just sort of on its way in and now it's out.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so things are very different right now in that world. If I were on this in the audience and wanted to come and take that asynchronous module that you're providing us, what should I
Hmm.
expect?
So what we do in this module is we really dive into the beginnings of these foundations. So we dive into LinkedIn, we dive into building your brand message, um, we dive into sales, we dive into marketing and the difference between sales and marketing. Um, and then once we have this complete foundation built, we tie it all together, and then we tie it back to um, your coaching certification. We tie it back to a path on what we do to take this path, and then furthermore, we're going to look at how do we actually build this step by step, right? So how are you going to build this coaching business step by step, including referrals? How do we get referrals and that type of thing? And I would ask everybody that's on this call right now, and feel free to chat in. Um, and I'm happy to pick and choose some answers as we have time, but feel free to chat and let me know what are some of the, now that you're building this business. And when I say that, this could be somebody who's just starting out, who hasn't even done their first sort of building of their business yet, or you've been doing this for a number of years, you're either stalling out or you're doing great and you want to really expand further. um, Put in the chat what your biggest hurdle right now is. Not what your biggest hurdle has been or what you think it's going to be. What are you facing right this second that's really a challenge in your building your coaching business? What brought you to this webinar, right? So when you saw growth hacks, what were you hoping to learn? And also, what are you facing as a challenge right now? So feel free to put it in the chat, and we can address that as well. Um, if I will say, as you put this in the chat right now, talking about LinkedIn, I wanted to add that if all all people on this call, if there's anybody that doesn't have a LinkedIn, you have a task today. Set up a LinkedIn page. That is your task today. Doesn't matter how good it is, set it up today. Um, and then we can talk about, what's the next step. So um, let's see. I'm just seeing some chats come in at the moment. Hmm. Okay, so uh, we've got one comment: unknowns and uncertainties. This is unknowns and uncertainties for humans in general is one of the scariest things, right? So whether we're talking about just life in general, um, your coaching business, or your clients and prospective clients, right? So the reason that I bring this up in a broad sense is unknowns and uncertainties are a huge issue for humans in general. So what we want to do is we want to solve unknowns and uncertainties for ourselves. And so one way we do that is we go through and we implement a plan, right? And that's what we do in the Business Mastery series. We teach how to implement a plan. That's why it is a series, because we release a series of modules to get rid of these unknowns and uncertainties. Um, and in doing that, what we do is we allow for our clients and prospects to melt away their unknowns and uncertainties, because we become certain. So once we are certain, then our prospects and our clients become more certain. And it's important to understand both the business side and the coaching side so you don't have that feeling, right? So I'm glad that comment came in. It's really important, and that's really learning each piece of this. So, in this particular growth hacking webinar, um, we can't address everything. I've touched on LinkedIn. There's a lot of unknowns and uncertainties. Even if you put up a LinkedIn page today, what do I do with this LinkedIn page, right? Um, LinkedIn's an incredible tool and has incredible depth. There's unknowns and uncertainties on what your photo should look like, right? What the angle of your photo is. We talk about this in the Business Mastery. There's also different tips and tricks of what you do with that LinkedIn page. So you kind of check off the box of each thing. So, okay, so I'm uncertain about my brand message. So we want to we want to dive into that brand message and understand it, create it, practice it, put it out there, and become more certain about it. So each thing will address these unknowns and uncertainties. Um,
So,
Another comment
Brett,
just came in. What? Yeah, go ahead.
let me just interrupt you for 1 second, and we'll go
Of
back to
course.
that comment. The sustainable. You're getting into a lot of the micro, which I like, and I think everyone on this call is looking for those answers, the quick answers. I want to step back.
Mm-hmm.
The first comment came in. There are way too many certified coaches in India, and
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I think globally. So there's a let's get philosophical for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have two identities that we're working with here. We're working with someone who is a coach, certified coach,
Mm-hmm.
presumably, and an entrepreneur. There's a famous quote by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. So how does that tie in? There are 53,000 ICF certified credential holders worldwide, and the coaching market is positioned to be somewhere in the teens, 14 billion annually by 2032. Um, it's become a mainstream profession. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think the successful coaches have to understand the parallel paths of being a coach and entrepreneur, where they are
Mm-hmm.
both excelling as practitioners and also simultaneously building a sustainable business. That
Mm-hmm.
ability to navigate both those identities of coach and entrepreneur is often determinant whether the coach's practice survives or struggles, regardless of their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I said made the quote in the beginning is just that. What is that third option that allows coaches to be business people and practitioners?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, well, touching on that, uh, too many certified coaches in India. I think we could venture to say there's too many certified coaches, period. Right? We don't even have to say in India. We could end the sentence right at too many certified coaches. It seems like sort of a daunting comment, but this is actually a big benefit for anybody who learns the mastery skills to go into this, right? And so if we look at real estate, worldwide residential real estate, there's too many realtors. There's too many people selling real estate. But the truth is that everything is really based around the 80/20 rule. So the 80/20 rule we talk about a lot in sales, and building these businesses, and we talk about in the Business Mastery series, but we can apply it to all sorts of things, including what Pranav is talking about here, um, and this sort of entrepreneurial hat and coaching hat. And so of these certified coaches, if we apply the 80/20 rule, 20% of the coaches are doing 80% of the business worldwide. Right. So what we want to make sure is that we fall into that 20%, and it's not so hard. It really isn't. So the 20% of coaches that are doing 80% of the coaching business worldwide, they're doing it because they've learned these skills. The skills we're talking about here, the skills we talk about in the Business Mastery series, um, they're able to capture that entrepreneurial side, but it's important to stay on track on the entrepreneurial side in order to capture the clients and the prospects. I noticed we had a chat in being consistent with marketing. So this is another key, right? So when we're looking at sales and marketing, that that 20% of coaches that's really rocking it out there, they are consistent with marketing. They are consistent with their message. They have a plan and they have a backbone behind all of this, and they have a trajectory of what they do going forward.
So the Pareto 80/20 principle is, let me substantiate that. There's actually this sort of duality of identity we're talking about between coaching practitioner, coaching business person. ICF has surveyed and come up with the fact that 68% of coaches report that business development was the greatest challenge, while only 12% uh, said that coaching skill development was their primary concern. So the stats are close to what you just put out there. The last comment on here from Pyle is most sustainable way to attract clients. What uh, what in your between sales and marketing, what comes up for you when you hear that?
Yeah, so in terms of sustainability, to attract clients, it really depends on how you've built your business, right? Um, there are a handful of tracks that are very specific, right? So we can do inbound marketing, we can do outbound marketing. We really should be doing both. Um, and once you've found those sustainable paths, then they become your sustainable path. You have to build the path in order for it to be sustainable. So again, going back to the foundation here. So when we're building a foundation on your entrepreneurial side, we want to start with creating a foundation of credibility of who we are. So before you could even find a sustainable path to attract clients, you have to create. So now you're a certified coach, or you've been a certified coach. Doesn't really matter whether you're, an incredible coach. You've been doing this for 5, 10 years. It doesn't really matter because the world doesn't know yet if they don't know. So we have to go out there and build ourselves up on LinkedIn. We have to build ourselves up on our own personal webpage, and do that in a methodical way to build credibility. So you may be credible, but the world doesn't know yet. So we have to build that foundation of credibility before you begin to attract those clients. And once that foundation of credibility is there, then we can start looking at the paths to build these pathways to bring in prospects as clients.
And when you say establishing credibility, you mean via what? The coaching skills that are promoted via marketing? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we're going to establish credibility and thought leadership, really. And so what we'll do in this, and this could include, how do we strategize around LinkedIn? How do we build a following on LinkedIn? Um, and so, how do we direct, once we've built a following and somebody inquires about our practice, how do we then send them through the sales process? Maybe they come back to our website, maybe they're purchasing via LinkedIn. And so we're creating these pathways and foundations to show who we are. We're showcasing ourselves, and we're showcasing ourselves in order to then attract the business in, and create a sustainable lead flow that's coming to us.
Okay. So without giving up too much, because you have much more detail in your in your videos, how did you get yourself to, what is your number now? What's the influencer? How do you become an influencer on LinkedIn? What's your
Are you asking, when you
you
say,
specific?
ask the question again?
You're an influencer on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
Because we're talking about thought leadership. What is the number that you have to achieve to become an influencer? Number of
And when you
followers?
say number, are you talking about number of followers?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's a really good question. I get asked that a lot. I honestly, the good news is I don't think it's a number, right? So it really depends. And this ties into a comment that just came in. I'm going to just read this out loud. There's a lot of marketing, brand building, thought leadership effort out there. How do you stand out, or how does one stand out, is really, and this ties perfectly into what Pranav was saying. And really, whether you have 500 followers, 1,000 followers, 40,000 followers, or 4 million followers, right? the it's about quality, right? So who are your followers? And it's not necessarily about quantity. If you decide that you're going to be, a particular type of leadership coach that's going to go after a particular type of prospect, well, if you have 750 followers that are very directed to this particular business that you've decided to build out, that's much more beneficial to you and your business than if you have even 10,000 nonsense followers, right? It might feel good and stroke your ego, but it's not really going to do anything for your business. So when it comes to thought leadership, um, following size is not always as important as who you've curated as your following. But if you've curated the proper following, and the proper prospects, that even 700 or 500 or 1,000 can beat having 4 or 5,000 or 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. So don't get too hung up on the numbers. Get hung up on the process and who you're attracting in.
So you're talking about your audience needs to be specifically targeted and a quality pool of quality population that you're addressing, but also there needs to be engagement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's two parts to that quality, right? There's two main parts, and we get more into this in the Mastery series. So there's the part of somebody who's actually a uh, a potential prospect and or client, right? And this becomes a follower, and then these people could become the second type of person as well, or the second type of person is sits on their own, which is an evangelist, right? So once you start sharing and integrating with your community, um, and you can build this following, again, it doesn't have to be huge, but you've got people that are following you and like you. Some people might never be clients, and that's okay. But if they become interested in what you have to say and they're interacting with you, they start to hit the algorithm, and you've got an evangelist, you've got an advertiser, and they start putting out there. They might even start sharing your posts on your behalf. Now it's almost like having free employees, right? So you've got these evangelists sharing your LinkedIn and actually building your business for you without you doing anything. And that's where laying that foundation work is important.
How long did it take you, Brett, to achieve that status?
Yeah, well, with mine's a bit broader, so it took a number of years. But nowadays, this is something that can be done with the right tools. And again, we talk about this in the Business Mastery series. With the right tools, this can be built in a matter of months. And when I say built, you're not going to be at the end game, but where you actually have uh, some sort of snowball effect and momentum in play, where in a matter of 6 to 12 months, you could start to really have some sort of credibility and influence on LinkedIn. You don't need to become a famous influencer, because the goal here is to build your business.
Okay. So we focus a lot. I mean, we've talked a lot about LinkedIn.
Mhm.
What other digital channels are helpful or that you've used or are using? Um, I don't even know most of them at this point. I mean, is it worthwhile for people to be on TikTok, for instance? And just caveat that TikTok, I believe, is not available in India specifically, but for those that are
Mhm.
abroad, or X or Instagram, uh, Facebook. Is there any value in any of those social media outlets for promotional purposes?
Yeah, so the simple answer is there's value if there's value. And so the explanation of that is, um, the value becomes once you've figured out that foundational element and who your ideal coaching client is. If for some reason that ideal coaching client falls in a particular age demographic, or locale, and you find out that that matches up with X, that matches up with Instagram, or whatever the social media channel is, then that becomes sort of an additional channel than LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always a foundational channel for everybody. And then so we would look at these other ones as layers onto LinkedIn, and matching them with what your prospective client is. So then you are going out and directing it to those channels. Um, Second to that would be, and in parallel to that would be your own website, right? So your own website that builds credibility for yourself, where your clients can come and be on your own landing page that you own, that has your own domain, your own branding. And that's really important to that this is set up in a way that builds that foundation and credibility as well.
So identify your coaching niche, connect it to your audience, see where your audience is, right? That's sort of the
Yes,
idea. Uh,
yes.
Kimmy is asking, how do you market yourself on Instagram? not sure my clientele would really connect there. It's an interesting, I actually have the same question myself. We also market on Instagram. And Chino's nodding her head because she knows. And I don't know what the traction is. I don't know what the engagement is on there, but does it, there are two parts of the question. One is what's the value of marketing on Instagram or TikTok or any of those uh, more visual, younger following
Hmm.
basis social channels, but also does it help to have multiple channels to post on? Uh, should we be posting on LinkedIn and X and Instagram because that's the multivariate sort of approach to marketing. You got to get it out on everything.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think that once you've figured out what your brand message is, and once you've figured out who your ideal coaching client is, then it better directs you on where you might want to try, right? For some reason, if your demographic was much older, um, you're probably going to waste your time on TikTok, right? So that demographic is just they're just not hanging out on TikTok. So there's no need to even test that. If your demographic is falling within the demographic of each social media, and let's say it falls in within two or three, then you can test them, right? And you can see how not only do your clients react, but how do you do on those particular platforms, and you can start to change your messaging and that type of thing, and change your thought leadership up. Um, it's also important to share original content. You could share other people's content as well, but become a thought leader and share original content that really comes from you and what makes your business special and what makes your business tick, because that's ultimately what they're buying. In addition to, we want to be likable, right? So people buy from people they like. This isn't just about intelligence, right? This is about relationships. This is about vibe. This is about energy. This is why you're on platforms like this. So people can look at you and go, wow, this person seems trustworthy and seems nice even, right? So if they feel that you sort of nice energy from you, so it's one thing to be credible, but it's another thing to be likable. So it's really important to be likable on these platforms.
Um, that's a really good charisma matters, right? You can get a so this actually brings me to an interesting place in the conversation. And just before we go on, if you're joining late, we're talking to Brett Burhoff, sales and marketing expert, on how to growth hack your coaching business. Please post your comments and questions on chat or in the Q&A so we can address them. I we are at the moment, you are an American born in America, and culturally attuned to that world. Um,
Hmm.
as far as I can see on the chat here, we are talking mostly to a South Asian audience,
Hmm.
and I have experience in both those cultures. Now, um, the sales and marketing. Let's go into coaching mode here. We are a coaching company. There are many limiting beliefs about marketing and sales that exist in general, based on your personality type. You could be an introvert and not want to do any of those things that you have to do on your own as a independent small business owner, coach, entrepreneur.
Hmm. Hmm.
There could be an additional hindrance culturally, uh, as I see it in South Asia, in India, or even generally in Asia. Um,
Hmm.
there are things that might prevent people from being effective marketers because there are ethical and cultural uh, uh, pauses around doing it. I think some of the limiting beliefs could be marketing feels self-promotional and egotistical, selling is manipulative and pressures people into buying things. If I'm a good enough coach, why should I have to do any of it? People will just find me. Um,
Hmm.
Focusing on the business takes away from time I need to focus on my clients. Charging premium rates is greedy, capitalist, all of that. So these are some of the limiting beliefs that might come up for folks. Um, and culturally, in my opinion, with that with that knowledge, there might be the use of sales and marketing in the US probably is a little more aggressive than it is in India. There maybe there's a
Hmm.
subtle. I, if anything I'm saying brings any thoughts for the audience or for you, Brett, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so they're all it's all good information. This ties into the likability, right? So there's really um, it's really important, and it also ties into a comment that just came in. Somebody said that LinkedIn didn't really help them in spite of using the premium service. Leads are not great. What should one do with LinkedIn? So it's a great question, not only for LinkedIn, but in general, right? So we get into business and we go, okay, um, I'm out there now. I feel like I'm doing stuff. I'm on LinkedIn. Maybe I'm even paying for ads. I'm writing posts or whatever. And where's my business? What's going on? Nobody's out there. And so going into what you're saying, Pranav, is that sort of self-promotion piece that might feel awkward or strange is really the key is reframing what this all really means, right? So we're not out there trying to create something we are not, right? So that likability component that we just talked about is tied into authenticity. So it's really, really hard to be likable if you are not authentic, right? So we the good news with that is if we know that likability and authenticity are two key components in order to get clients, then the pressure gets lifted. We don't have to worry about, are we doing something wrong? Are we self-promoting and bragging and showing our ego too much? No, we're definitely not. We went through this training. We're good at what we do, and we're here to help people, right? So if we take an approach that we're actually here to actually help people, as opposed to I'm trying to sell something this feels awkward. No, it's not awkward. We've trained for this. We're out there and we're being authentic and we're being likable and we're being ourselves, right? So people want to buy from you and you don't have to worry about what it looks like to anybody else because you've got specific qualities that the other coaches do not have. So as far as the LinkedIn comment of leads are not great, right? Sometimes leads are not great. Doesn't matter what the platform is. We're always going to have leads that are not great. And so then we can start to refine our process. And again, we go into this lead generation topic in the Business Mastery series. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but as a special offer, what we've put together for this webinar, everybody that joined the Growth Hacks webinar, we're running a 10% off um, opportunity for the Business Mastery series. So in the next 24 hours, anybody that signs up for the Business Mastery series will get 10% off that module and that course, where we dive much deeper into this lead generation. And so we dive into not only how do we generate leads, but how do we generate quality leads, and how do you deal with, when there's not good quality coming in, because we want to sort of hone these different pathways. Um, so it's important to understand they're not always going to be good, but we need more so we can start identifying what is good and what is not, and what pathways are good and what are not.
Yeah. So it's worth mentioning, we were chatting about this earlier. There's a module that you were considering about the ethical marketing for coaches, right? Is that there was something around how to market ethically to coaches, and there's some comments here that are coming in within. Divya says, "Is it within my authentic realm of self-expression to do such a thing?" Right. Um, I I just want to address that for a second because I think in order to be an effective marketer, as you have said now, for the last 5 minutes, you have to kind of believe in what you're doing, and but you also have to get out there and do it, right? And
Hmm.
that in itself is a fairly significant barrier. Uh,
Correct.
I came across this and I wanted to just read it out because it felt like it made a difference. Uh, it makes a difference to the discussion we're having in terms of marketing and sales being inauthentic, right? So I'll just read out what I noted. Marketing at its core is simply the process of connecting your valuable services with those who need them. Sales, properly conducted, is a collaborative exploration of fit and value. So it takes those two disciplines and distills them down to the basics, right? It takes away that ego, the aggressive, the manipulation, all the elements that give them the negative connotations. Um,
Mhm.
and I think you're right. You have to reframe how you think about it in order to be successful at it. Um, I don't know if there was a question in there as more of a comment. But I think that we could spend a lot of time working through the coaching and reframing of how we will feel about marketing and sales.
Mhm.
I think maybe the question more is how much of what you see from the Western the North American world can influence the way we are thinking of marketing in specifically in India.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think about that question more on the sales side than I do on the marketing side. So the marketing side, I'll talk about for just a few seconds here. So on the marketing side, we get it as we're building our coaching business. This is something that we can implement and systemize, right? So we don't even have to get too emotional about what this means to us and what we're doing, whether it feels manipulative or that type of thing that I've seen in the comments. So on the marketing side, when we get into this business mastery series and you're building your business, these are systems and process that we're putting in place, right? We're locking into these channels, we're learning the channels, and we're letting it go, right? So then you create this sort of marketing machine, this marketing engine, and you're testing other machines as well. But when we move over to the sales side, and we're talking about what we can learn globally from different cultures and approaches here in the U.S., the one thing to keep in mind, we often have a view in our head of what a top salesperson looks like. What does a top salesperson look like in the US? What does a top salesperson look like in India? And when I use the term salesperson, this can apply to coaches, right? So we are essentially selling our services, right? Whether you're selling services or you're selling real estate, doesn't really matter if we talk about the salesperson hat. But it's important to understand that the top salesperson that's in your mind, whoever that is and whatever that looks like, some of the top salespeople globally are not anything what you would think they look like. I've talked to top coaches who are incredible introverts and don't talk to a lot of people, but they figure out a way to speak to people in an authentic way and the people that they need to speak to. And then I've talked to top coaches that are extremely extroverted, bubbly, and they're the life of the party. The point is, there is not a persona that you have to worry about being. The persona that you have to worry about being is the best version of yourself in order to build your business.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it leads into the idea that there needs to be a connectivity between various elements of your business, your persona, your philosophy, your niche, your passion, and how that all is conveyed via marketing and um, how when you are able to produce the leads and they come talk to you, how you're approaching the conversion, that sale. So we talked a lot about marketing actually in that vein. Sales. Let's talk a little bit more about sales. Um, what do you see as lacking? Let's get just directly to what might the pain point is. What do you see as lacking when you see people trying to sell? Or what could be
Yeah,
the issues that coaches face when they're trying to sell?
Yeah, well, I'll begin to answer that, and at the same time, I will invite into the chat that question. What are your pain points when you're trying to sell? Take marketing out of it for a second. When you're out there talking to people, or maybe you're addressing an outbound lead or an inbound lead, via email, text, maybe it's a referral. What are your pain points right now that seem to keep coming up? Or I'll take it further. You might have a pain point that you haven't experienced yet. It's just a fear based off sales because you haven't gotten yourself out there to do X, Y, or Z. What is that pain point that's not allowing you to get out there and do that sales component? So feel free to drop that um, in the chat. Um, as far as what we see in the coaching industry, um, I think some of these the number one pain point um, is fear. If we had to just distill it down to one word, it's fear. You can be a great certified coach, you know your craft, you've got a great background, you've even got your marketing down, but the sales side, that sort of relationship building side to bring the client in, there's a fear hurdle. So addressing that fear hurdle is really, really important on how to get over that and how to get through it, and then how to sustainably sort of address your fear each time until it becomes just a natural thing. And by the way, this is super common. It's the most common hurdle for almost anybody who's facing a hurdle out there. Let's see, I see a comment here. Experience. Yeah. So somebody mentions courage to recognize my unique value, right? So having courage is a direct relative of fear. Um, Fear of not being able to have time to service everyone in a fully committed way. That's a great point. So, so we're talking about fear. That's it's a wonderful comment, right? I'm going to read that one again. Fear of not being able to have to time. What I think this is saying, have enough time to service everyone in a fully committed way. So what ends up happening there? That's a reasonable fear, right? So you're one person essentially. We don't have a staff yet. Maybe you have a staff, but let's just assume we're one person, right? And am I going to be able to service these clients in a way that it's what I expect? Well, what ends up happening, this is very natural in building these businesses, is we get sucked into the fear side, right? As opposed to going, okay, I have this fear, but how do we accomplish what the goal is here? And the goal is how do I how do I take care of these clients in the best way possible? So push the fear aside, we create an opening of energy where we can then focus on what does our system look like to handle these clients, so we can start to time manage and build this business in a way that matters. And sometimes once you get momentum, this might be limiting the amount of clients you're taking on. Right, it's a good problem to have, but we can't take on everybody right away. A business needs to be built in a sustainable way, that we don't get a strange problem that somebody could have is too much success too quick. So part of that is creating time management, client management, prospect management, marketing management, and we need to sort of um, throttle these as we go through, and that removes the fear once we get into that side. How much does a niche and
Yeah, that
marketing
question
and
has come
building
up.
coaching?
I think Sorry guys asked a question earlier, and
Yeah, yeah. So I think in terms of niches, I think it's really important, and it's really important because the coaching business is big and it's wide, right? And if we play as we are everything to everybody, it's very easy to get lost in the noise out there. So we have to pick a focus, right? And we talk about this in the Business Mastery series, where we pick a focus and then we analyze that focus and we do a deep dive into that focus and then we build off that focus. And it's much easier to find clients doing this and doing it right, as opposed to just putting ourselves out there into a sea of people where it just we become part of the noise. We don't want to become part of the noise. So the quick answer is very important. Somebody said that one of their pain points is convincing high-end clients. I would tie this one directly into fear, right? So high-end clients are scary because they have the word high-end associated with them, right? They're really not that scary. They just happen to be high-end clients, right? So it's like if we were talking to somebody famous, we just think about talking to somebody famous, not even in the coaching world, right? We meet the celebrity that we've always wanted to meet, and there's this fear around it and excitement around it. But at the end of the day, that celebrity is really just like us. They're just a human just like us. So those high-end clients are humans just like us. So I think the key is to start to humanize everybody and understand that these are all clients. It might be high-end clients, that's cool, but they're still all clients and they're all humans and they're just like you. And this starts to remove the fear.
There's a question, one or two examples of coaches coaching firms that have successfully hacked their growth. Uh, I don't I don't want to go on the line and say Coach Aria has been around for 10 years and we're still figuring out how to hack uh, our growth, but we have some reasonable success in the process. But I think if you look at the competitive landscape out there, there are different ways of doing it. The largest coaching company, BetterUp, which at one point had a $4.79 billion dollar valuation, is built itself up as an agglomerator, aggregating different coaches to provide services. But at the end, I think they sacrificed quality over quantity. So I think there are different tactics that different companies have taken. In Kucharia's case, I will say, speaking on behalf of it, the company and the board, is that we began with the premise of incorporating Eastern philosophy and spirituality into Western psychology, psychometrics, and we've held true to that premise from day one, and we are committed to bringing wellness through coaching and spirituality, and that sort of has been our mantra all along. So I think that it kind of answers a lot of the question that around figuring out what your niche is, but also what your mission and vision are, and staying true to that right through the process, reminding yourself what that is. If you're not reminding yourself, then have stakeholders, board of advisors, boards that remind you what that mission and vision statement are, because you have to stay true to that. With the last 10 minutes in here, keep bringing in the Q&A, Brett. Anything that you have questions about. Brett, we'll throw the link in again for Brett's Mastery series, where he goes into the details and of everything. And then let's address the comments that are coming in. Brett, if you also want to provide some way for people to contact you directly, if they'd like, feel free to put your contact info in the chat as well.
Yep, sure.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that while we're finishing up here as well. I see a LinkedIn question. Posting on LinkedIn and maintaining the regularity with posts is seen as overhead and too much effort. I'm wondering what we could do that will kick off the business as a one-time effort and then runs automatic mode. Everybody loves automatic mode. I do too. So we can spend more time and more quality work than spend time on maintaining online presence. A belief
And the
again.
comment before is actually has an adjacency to it. Both the comments are kind of in line with each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we talked about this, touched on this a little bit. We talked about building the foundation. And so when we build the foundation of LinkedIn and we build the foundation of our online presence and our credibility, it's we need to look at this like we are building a machine, right? So now the machine's not going to always run on automatic. We could build a machine to run automatic, but there will be a difficult component to this that will take your bandwidth, period. So it's just an acceptance that this will take your bandwidth. And it might even take a lot of bandwidth, but if you equate it in your mind, here, I'm going to put my LinkedIn in here. Feel free to uh, connect with me there as well. You can see what I'm doing on LinkedIn also. Um, and so we have to build this foundational machine, and we can begin to build this foundational machine in an automatic way. In the business mastery series, we talk about leveraging AI. You brought up automatic. AI really allows us to do things and leverage technology and make it automatic. There is going to be an elite series, which is an upgrade from the business mastery series that will include an AI module where we will dive deeper into the AI module. In the elite series, you will also have the opportunity to connect directly with me for one-on-one custom consulting to your business. Um, and so where we're going to talk about in this elite AI module, we touch on it again in this the business mastery series, is how to create that automatic side. But in order to do all that, we need to build the machine first, right? So we need to build the LinkedIn machine, the lead generation machine, and then if we want to set it up as automatic, we can do that. But there's still going to be downtime in building this, right? But the key is to build it right, so then we can leverage what we need to going forward to create an automatic situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's an ideal scenario. Um, and we would all love to have that happen. I think there does require some rigor to getting to that point. And one way to manage is have someone else do it for you, but it's all chicken and egg. In order to have someone else do it for you, you have to have the budget to afford that, and facing all the issues that a small business owner would. And I think that's the crux of the issues that many of us that become certified coaches and entrepreneurs have worked in corporate environments for a very long time with support systems that are no longer there, such as marketing and sales. And now we're doing it
Hmm.
on our own, whether we like to or not. And
Hmm.
and how do we balance all that out and still come out on the top? I'll sort of last 5 minutes. There is just a thought I have, which is around aligning that vision and mission statement. Um, it, I think the balance we've talked about the philosophy being a coach and being an entrepreneur, and how to take that mindset and recognize that your business exists to amplify the services that you're providing, the impact that you want to provide. And when you can properly align all the variables that are required to be a to be authentic in your marketing, the credibility comes on its own. But it does take some work. I don't think there's a fast track to it.
Hmm.
Just want to make sure we cover any pending questions here. No. Okay. Well, if there are any other questions in the last 4 minutes or so, please post them. Brett, I think you recapped a lot of what was said today. There's also a recap on the chat. We can finish up with some closing thoughts, and I would encourage uh, everyone that's listening to take a look at Brett's profile, uh, follow some of the things that he suggested to do. Feel free to contact him. Take a look at the Business Mastery series that he is providing us. It was created with the intent to help us coaches be better at business building. It is a pain point that is often expressed to us as we work with our work with certifying professionals to be coaches. What do we do now? We're certified. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Go from here. How do we build a business? I don't like selling. It feels creepy to me. I don't understand marketing. I mean, goodness, I was a marketing professional for 15 years. The marketing that is done now, I have no clue. I could not get a job to save my life in that world because it is a different world entirely. So there are a lot of, I think there are a lot of common challenges that we all are experiencing, facing. Perhaps this is the forum that we can share it in, and we can figure out a way to do more around the sales and marketing community within Kucharia. Brett, we can talk about that separately. But yeah, send us any questions, comments, how we can be helpful beyond what Brett is already providing to you with his modules. And with the last 2 minutes, Brett, I'll sort of Chinu, do you have anything to say, or we can have Brett just close us out?
Before we close this webinar, thank you, Pranav. Thank you, Brett. It was really very insightful. I would just like to inform all of the attendees that I will share an email that will have a coupon code for you for the 10% discount that Brett was talking about his business mastery course. And about the CCE, our support team will get in touch with you. So please look into your emails. And for the recordings, I would really request you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And also, upcoming programs have been uploaded on our website. So please go through that and recommend it to anybody who you want to go through this transformational journey, and it can benefit them. That is it, Pranav. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chinu.
So I want to share one last thought. So I want to sort of tie this into the title of what we're doing today, which is growth hacks for coaches, right? So I put my LinkedIn link in the chat. I'm going to do it again right now. And the reason I'm putting it a second time is I invite you so that when you get to my page, you're going to see a follow button. You're going to click the buttons next to it to open up to a connect button. I ask that you connect directly to me, and I'm going to tell you why this is specifically for this course. And I'm going to tell you I'm going to accept all your connections. Okay. So if you click the follow button, you're just following me and you're following the content, that's fine. You can do that too. But a growth hack that I'm going to give you right now is I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn of top executives around the world. Once I accept your connection, you are instantly tied into that network. So when you reach out to people, you'll then see, oh, look, Brett Burhoff is a mutual connection of ours. So I'm giving you a growth hack right now. Send me a LinkedIn request if you'd like, and you will then growth hack into 40,000 people. And you will then be able to go, oh, it looks like we're in that connecting network. So we go, and when we get into these modules, and in the first Business Mastery Series module, of course, we talk about LinkedIn a lot. We're going to have a future module that's going to really dive really deep into LinkedIn, all the back end, how we handle the algorithms, that type of thing. But just to give you a taste, this gives you a chance to tap into a significant network that's on LinkedIn. Because it's not just about this particular one. It's not just 40,000 people. These are 40,000 very connected people. So it puts you in a very connected path as you build out your LinkedIn. So look at it as one part of your LinkedIn building that you have an opportunity to sort of tap into this network just from this webinar.
Brilliant. Thank you, Brett. We will be back with more. And in the meantime, to everyone out there, have a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good night, depending on wherever you are in the world. And we will chat again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.